third of 3 Child Care Assistance Program stakeholder conversations. We're going to do things a tiny bit out of order. Typically, we would start the meeting with sharing where we've been and where we're going to go today, but in order to accommodate schedules, we're going to have a presentation right off the bat. But first, before we do that, we will do a quick round of introductions so we know who's in the room. I'm Jody Harden. I'm with the Civic Canopy and have had the privilege over the last couple of months to help design and facilitate this series. And if we could just do name and the organization you're with, that would be fabulous. Talk really loud because we're still working on the microphone that can go around the room. And can I start over here? Hi, Heather Craig, the Office of Early Childhood. I'm Danielle Greer, also with the Office of Early Childhood.
Suzanne Bain, Florence Christian Services.
My turn. Atterbury, Angela. Lauren Hayes, Clayton Learning. Susie Howard, Palm Star. Larry Allen, Fulton County. Pamela Wilson, Redmond County. Henry, Florence County.
Bill Jager, the Power of Landscaping, Reader Officer in Shelton.
Andy Bartolo, Legacy, and Lisa Jansen, Thompson, Early Childhood Partnership with Adams County. Michelle Dalton, and also looking for my packet. Judy Williams with Early Learning Ventures. I'm Patty Stahl with Global Village for National Peace. Jackie Lorenzo, Early Childhood Council of Pennsylvania. Brian Conley, Office of Early Childhood. Lindsay Darkman, Office of Early Childhood. Lisa Castay, Office of Early Childhood.
Chambers, Brendan Jackson, County and Social Services.
Cheryl Hodges, EHS. Christine Holler with the Early Childhood Leadership Commission. Erin Mulvaney, Office of Early Childhood. Marianne Snyder, Office of Early Childhood. I'm Katie Poston with Early Milestones. And up here.
Erin Hayes with the Office of Early Childhood.
Laura Morales with the Office of Early Childhood.
And way back yonder, someone's getting coffee. So, how many people in the room, this is the first time you've been at one of these meetings? It's okay to say that. Great. So just a couple people. We will pause after this first presentation and catch everybody up to speed on the first 2 conversations. But during the first 2 meetings, there were several stakeholder table conversations around how we're communicating with families and parents about the importance of child care and the continuity of child care. And so one of the suggestions at the last meeting was to give an update from Christina with the Early Childhood Leadership Commission about some work underway that the commission is supporting to think about how we improve communications and parent understanding of the continuity of child care. So with that, Christina will let you come up.
Yep. Okay, go ahead. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, can you guys hear okay? Is that not loud enough? I feel
You can also
louder.
take it out of here. Just if you want to hold it.
Is that better? Great, I'll just talk louder. Thank you. I'm Christina Muller again with the Early Childhood Leadership Commission, and I appreciate you letting me speak in first because I have to run to another engagement. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk with you about a partnership led through the Early Childhood Leadership Commission through our Early Childhood Communications Collaborative. This was a project that was facilitated by Early Milestones Colorado with a variety of funding partners to help us examine what kind of messages are going on around the state that are aimed towards parents and caregivers. How can we learn from what's going on to target our messages and to streamline our messages so that parents and caregivers are getting the messages and the information in the way that they can receive it at the time that they need it. So I know this has come up a few times in the last conversation. So I will just dive in and give a high-level overview of the project. The report that I'll be referencing just came out and it's online. It's on the Early Childhood Leadership Commission's website, so I would encourage you all to take a look. It goes much more in depth into what I'll be talking about today, but I'm just giving a little teaser of what's available. So the ultimate goals of these efforts, of all of our efforts, are to raise awareness and make sure that parents and caregivers are connected to the services that they need. In order to do that, we needed to first get a better understanding of what types of efforts were happening in the state and understand how parents and caregivers wanted to receive that information and when they wanted to receive it. So the first step that we did, and again with Early Stones facilitated this project, was to reach out to across the state to people who were putting messages out in the world towards parents and caregivers. We ended up getting almost 400 responses across the state, which was phenomenal. And we reached out to our typical early childhood partners, but we also reached out to our atypical partners, like Parks and Rec, that might have messages encouraging families to get outdoors, or transportation departments that have seatbelt safety, child seat safety, things like that. So the response was fantastic. And we asked people about what is the reach of the messages that you're trying to get out to parents and caregivers. What's your budget? What type of messages are you using? What tactics are you using? Are you using Facebook? Are you using the commercials? And then what are you measuring the reach and the impact of your communications? And we worked with the Keystone Foundation and your community investment fund. We got all that information back to try and make sense of it because there was so much information. So if you jump to the next slide, this is just a snapshot of across the state how many messages are being aimed at parents and caregivers at this moment. So you can see in our lead message community, there's still 30 different messages going to parents and caregivers at any one time. In some of the higher, more saturated communities, we have up to 71 different messages going to parents and caregivers. We know that there's a lot of really good efforts, but there's a lot of noise out there, and now we can really quantify there's really a lot of noise and a lot of information being pushed at parents and caregivers. And you can see the uneven saturation throughout the state. You can go to the website. This is linked from the Early Childhood Leadership Commission's website, right here. But that will let you play around with what types of messages are going. Were they safety messages? Was it health and well-being? It's broken down in a lot of unique ways. You can also see the budgets for the different types of messages that are going out there. So I really encourage you to go and just play around with that website because I think there's a lot of really rich information that you can gather from that around your communities. Next. So the next piece of that, now we had a picture of what's going on in the state. We wanted to hear from parents and caregivers about what information is important to you and when do you need it. How are you accessing it when you need it? So we did a series of focus groups, 8 focus groups in English and Spanish, mostly geared towards low-income families. And we tried to have a balance. We did have a balance of caregivers and parents. So we had 95 participants in the 4 communities you see listed on the top of the slide there. And the conversations were extremely rich. Another resource you can find on our website is the 42 repeat reports from the people that did these focus groups, really getting in-depth information on what they found. A lot of really, I don't know what the right word is, meaningful quotes from parents about what they need and how they're trying to find the information, what they do find the information. But we worked with the firm that helped us with these focus groups to really narrow it down to 6 major themes across the state. Jump to the next one. These themes you'll see listed across there. Openness, there was an extreme openness to want to know more information, to recognize that they don't have all the tools that they need and they want to get those tools. But confusion and anxiety about where to find them and how to access them. Especially in our rural areas, there was a strong sense of loneliness thinking around, it takes a village, but I don't have a village. I'm trying to do this on my own, and I need support, I need help, but I'm not sure where to go to get that help. If that leads into the lack of help, and also a desire to be valued. This is a really important job, and parents recognize that, caregivers recognize that, but didn't always feel that they were valued in their role. You can see two of the folks that we pulled out there about wanting information and needing people to lean on and needing that support, but not sure where to get it. So what we did, we jump to the first one, is take all this information and really distill it down to some recommendations that you'll find in the report. Those recommendations circle around three main focus areas. One of them being we need to find a way to reduce the noise that's out there. There's so many messages. There's so many things parents should be doing, or could be doing, but they're not sure what's right, where to go. So as a state, one thing we should be thinking about is how can we streamline those messages and make sure that we're giving the same messages across the board. The second focus area was the quality of the communication. Getting a chance to evaluate our work and understand what messages are working, what's effective, and what are the means that when we have something that we want to get out to people, how do we know that it's been working? So that was a big area. And then the third area around two-way responsive engagement with parents and caregivers. So not just, I'm telling you this information, but how do we engage with parents and allow them to respond and to work with them on a continual basis. So what I won't go into, but if you can flip through the next three slides, these are the sets of recommendations that you'll find in the report, as well as on the left side, who those recommendations would be targeting, the family structure, the individual child, the community, the relationship level, and who could help implement those, whether it's providers, whether it's legislators, policymakers. So all that information is, like I said, on the website. I'm going to encourage you to take a look at it. Just one more, thank you. But overall, what I would like you to take away from this is that we learned that parents really don't have a solid understanding of development, how things like quality of care and continuity of care play such an important role in the development of a child's future. But there's a lot of anxiety around that, but they want to do what's best for their kids. And they're anxious to do that. They want to have the resources available to them. So that's the good news. There's an opportunity here for us to make sure that our messages are clear and consistent and reaching parents and caregivers at the time that they need it. So the Early Childhood Leadership Commission, along with the departments and state agencies and partners, stakeholders across the state, we hope to continue this work and to start implementing some of these recommendations in the different work that we all do. Some of these are very broad, but have pieces that we can pull down and implement in our day-to-day work. Things like making sure the right messages are being carried out by the right trusted source. Trying to reduce the overwhelming amount of noise and messages around the state. So there's a lot of really good things in the report that I would encourage you to take a look at and see what you can adopt. And if you're interested in joining us on the statewide level and hoping to figure out some of these pieces, please get in touch with me. We'd love to have you involved in some of our stakeholder steering committees or advisory partners to help us go over this work. So any questions on the quick overview?
We have people that are participating online, so using the microphone helps them understand and hear everything in the room. So,
hi, this is Suzanne from Florence Crittenden. When we had All-Star rating, it was nice because we really trained our young moms. We work with teen moms that, when you leave us, you're looking for All-Star, you want that out there on the, out on the signs out there, and don't go below 3, or if you do, call us, and, et cetera. And I mean, we really did a good job. I think our girls would come and say, I can't find an All-Star rated one that I like, and blah, blah. And so I guess when we went to the Colorado Shines, that was the question I had was, is there marketing money? What's the marketing plan to really get out there and communicate And so I don't know, is something being led by them? I don't know if how you're associated. Appreciate it.
That's not something I can speak to, so I pass it off to somebody in the Office of Early Childhood. Anybody want to take a?
Hi, so for Colorado Shines, we have invested in media, so we really targeted television and radio in the metro area, and we're planning to continue that into next year. We've also developed kind of a marketing toolkit for programs, and we're also building those for the council's a lot of parents. And so those will be going out slowly over the next few months. And so programs will have access to that, and will include informational flyers, posters, newsletter articles, just all the tools that we really need to be able to inform people about the different bubbles, as well as how to access that through the website. Any other questions?
I think you bring up a good point. If I can just jump onto that all of our work should be aligned, and we should be making sure that messages are consistent. And all of the information from our focus groups that we did, from the 380 plus respondents, we're happy to share and have all that posted online and have shared with the office as they're developing more communications as well.
Hi, Bill from the Children's Campaign. The purpose of this group is really focused on the child care subsidy program and how we make sure that parents who are enrolling their children in CCAP understand the importance of bringing their child every day, the importance of continuity of care. Has there been any discussion at the ECLC or the subcommittee about a particular focus or outreach to parents receiving a subsidy? So we have some consistent messages about the importance of the subsidy, what it means, why it's important, even if you have a day off and still bring the kid, etc. Because what that means from a county perspective, from a provider perspective, having parents really understand the importance of the program is part of the conversation why I think the little want to be here today.
Absolutely. Do you want to speak to that? I'm going to pass that to Marianne.
So I'll start, but then maybe Greg or Aaron want to add to this. You know, at least historically, that and I keep Greg out there. The call on him.
You got the call.
Oh, anyway, okay, Aaron, you're on. Couple of future things. As we replace the point of service sale, the ugly orange cards, and move to an app technology, that we know not every parent will have a cell phone, but many will. And part of that chance modernization is going to include push messaging, so that we'll be able to send child care subsidy participants all kinds of great communications, including how important continuity is in care. We just had our very first licensing and child care county subsidy conference last week, which I haven't seen the evaluations, but anecdotally I'm hearing most people were really not only had a good time but learned a lot. And the conference, you know, almost singularly hit the message of continuity and quality home and the collective really responsibility that county staff have along with our licensing staff to continue to educate parents. That isn't getting directly at parents, and that isn't something we've done well at the state level yet. We've been relying on our county partners to do that, but I've also talked, and you know, we can't make everything happen today, but I'm super interested in developing communication materials for subsidy providers that sort of their CCAP Bill of Rights, if you will, that includes not only, you know, these are the current rules, these are, you know, how it should be working, but also those quality messages. Do you want to add anything?
Also, with the CCCAP reauthorization, we're required to empower parents who work information. And we're doing that through our Colorado Shines website. So consumer-friendly reports and inspections, so parents understand what they're looking at when they are reviewing a particular provider. Ensuring that we have a system, which we already do, so that parents have some way of kind of comparing quality across providers. So these are things that we'll continue to do as a state and at the state level through our website, and then help disseminate information to the county so that they can get that bottom-line information in a more streamlined way. So that is something that's on the docket, and we're working to improve it every day. So suggestions from this group, particularly those on the ground working with those families on how best to communicate, very helpful information as we're going forward. As Marianne mentioned, when we start using that electronic technology, we're really going to be looking at in using this report and understand how many messages are the right amount, right? We don't want to oversaturate what we're giving to parents. So how can we do few targeted messages? How we're getting them to understand the importance of early childhood education. I'm pointing to like that question.
I was just going to mention that through Project Launch, we did a whole bunch of focus groups with providers about the best way. And providers meaning healthcare providers, home visitors, early care and education providers, because there's a lot of noise to them as well. And so it's about reducing the amount of noise to parents, but also all of us are so busy doing our job day to day. We get emails 100 times a day of, here's this new thing, here's that new thing, check out this, and rarely ever do we have time to really take the time it needs to check it out so that we best then deliver it to parents. And so what we've heard over and over again is that anytime messages come, they should come with some sort of talking points for providers or some type of webinar or training or something that says how to use this, because we just don't have the time we really want to read it and understand it well enough to then give it to parents. And we know that parents generally will trust someone they know to give them the message. And so that messenger needs to be really well versed in what that message means. And which messages are the right messages and which ones aren't. It's just too hard to separate all that out.
Thank you. Is there one last question for Christina? She doesn't need to scoop, but there's one more. Thank you.
Thank you. And here's the website again where you can go and get the report, all the research materials that we use, and also my contact information if you want to get in touch and be involved in the next steps. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we'll take a couple minutes and reorient people to the purpose for this three-part series, as well as an overview of the last two meetings and what we'll be doing the rest of the time together today. So we go to the next one. So the purpose of this series, the Office of Early Childhood wanted to create an opportunity for partners, providers, parents, anyone who's interested to come together and build a shared understanding of historical changes impacting CCCAP and provide an update on current administration of the program, really in order to create enough grounding so that we can have some time to have conversation and generate any input and recommendations on the future of CCCAP. So the way we've done that is through this three-part series. At the first meeting, we spent a substantial amount of time hearing from the Office of Early Childhood about the state of CCCAP, learning about federal updates, learning about the Colorado State Plan. And we did, we looked at data, we looked at facts, and we also had conversations and tables to start generating what are some of those topic areas, those pressure points, those issues that through this series we wanted to spend more time talking about. The compilation of that first meeting is this handout. I did put copies around the room for those who haven't received a copy in the past. And I will admit that middle table in the back, so sorry, I was trying, I knew that would happen. I was trying to get people up front. I will get you copies. And then at the second meeting, if you want to go to the next one, we, based on the first meeting conversation and the topic areas that seemed like they were of great interest, value, and perhaps had different perceptions based on if you were a provider, a county, administrator or family member, we had a panel with a variety of perspectives that spent time really teasing out and going into different issues. A great opportunity to hear that when something from a provider perspective might sound different to a county perspective or to a family perspective. From that conversation then, we spent time in small work groups diving into these areas. Of course, I'm nowhere near my PowerPoint slide. Oh, no, go back. So small groups spent time talking about communications. Where are there hiccups or opportunities to improve communications? How we might better support providers to take CCAP, accept CCAP, be skilled at using CCAP. A group that talked about fiscal realities and allocation, technology tools and solutions, and then the last one was philosophical changes around childcare and really especially around continuity. So based on those conversations then, I'm going to be free. What we're going to do today is two-part. We're going to hear updates, which you just heard one. We'll hear a series of additional updates from the Office of Early Childhood around these topics that were really of interest in areas where additional information, data, confirmation of what's already underway can help inform and drive some of the solutions that have been bubbling up through these conversations. Then we're going to spend a significant amount of time in small groups honing in on additional ideas to really get to recommendations. Because at the end of the day, the Office of Early Childhood wants compiled recommendations that can then be shared with Executive Director CCAP to help inform or guide additional thoughts and ideas around CCAP. So with that, I think I am turning it over to the next slide. To the Office of Early Childhood, there are several things that they're going to update us on, some being the chat and attendance reporting, the market rate survey, and the allocation formula at work group. And all three of those ideas, along with the communication plan you just heard, were generated through the first two meetings. What am I giving it? Go, Brett.
Brett, can we use this one? Or that one, either way.
Thanks, boss. All right. Okay.
Looks like we're starting with allocation. So there was some interest in better understanding the allocation, how it happens, what it is, what it might be in the future, and that's what this is going to be. So let's go to the next one. This is what I plan on talking about today. So the purpose of the allocation, how the allocation is made, what is the process, how does it come to be, what's in that black box that feels like a black box, and let's open that black box so you all see it. It's not meant to be a black box. Details on the formula that we're living right now today, and some considerations that the allocation formula work group is looking at right now as we speak, and then how you might be able to get involved should you be interested in that. Anything else folks would like me to cover today? All right, then that is what we'll cover. Next, please. Right here. Purpose of the allocation. So what the heck is this allocation supposed to be doing anyway? Next, thank you. Well, it starts with the purpose of CCAP. This is an allocation for CCAP. Very high level financial assistance for childcare for this is parents choosing timely and efficient access to quality childcare for all families, regardless of income, and assistance in meeting their self-sufficiency goals through childcare. So it's more than that, it's deeper than that, but high level, CCAP is supposed to do these things. The allocation should be supporting counties in doing this piece. And the reason you have a pie up there is this discussion is not about the size of the pie. There's a set amount of dollars. It's about cutting the pie. Cutting the pie equitably amongst counties. So that's one thing to recognize. It's amongst counties. That doesn't necessarily imply equitable distribution amongst children, families, and providers. So we're a local control state. Counties have a lot of options. There's some strengths and weaknesses to that, but one of the issues is providers have different rates in different counties. There's different income eligibility for different families. So that means that a family in County A may not be eligible in County B. So this is not about that. This is about dividing the money equitably amongst counties. And then doing so in alignment with the purpose of CCAP, which was the
previous slide. Any questions about this? This is a pretty important concept. Equitably amongst counties, yes.
Can you give him the mic?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Brett, just so I'm fully understanding number one here, that would mean that I guess you'll get an allocation process, there's no accounting for the way that counties use different levers to determine who's eligible.
So currently, the intent is to take out county options as much as possible within the allocation. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way it's been historically. So that if county A uses lever X, that is not impacting their allocation. You're right. So equitably amongst counties, taking out county action, yes. Can I use that microphone?
If you use this one, I'll travel with that.
Thank you. I would like to know what you mean by equitably. I know it's not equally, but how do you define equitably?
Excellent question, and that's what the remaining slides will mainly be about. It is important to note that not everyone agrees on what equity means, and in fact, not everyone agrees with that on the allocation formula committee. It's a very contentious topic, but purpose. Purpose is equitable distribution amongst counties. What that means, much more complicated. Next. All right. But before we get there, I'm going to tell you how it happens. So this is how we get to a formula. And here's the process. Might actually use that. It's hard to see. Very good, thanks. All right, so process starts with allocation task group. That's where the sausage is made, so to speak. But it's just a recommendation. That recommendation goes to the finance sub-pack. Finance sub-pack looks at it, approves it, asks for different things before they approve it, but once they've approved it, it goes to PAC. Once PAC approves it, it goes to Mr. Mika. Then he approves or does not, and goes to the CCAP administrator, who is outside right now on a call, to distribute it to all of units. But really, this is where the formula's got. Here's where it's checked by different groups, and sometimes there's tweaks, but if you want to impact formula, this is the place to do it. This group here is made up of currently 12 voting members, 9 from counties and 3 from the state. 3 from the state include myself, Reg Jefferson, who's our CFO, and Greg, who's our CCAP administrator. So we have program, data, finance, and then 9 counties. And we'll show you who those counties are here in a second. This is a public meeting, but there can only be 1 voting member per county. So other folks can come, they can speak, they can put forth their thoughts, but 1 voting member per county, plus the 3 state. Questions on that before we actually move on? Yeah, okay. Here are the counties. So as you can see, it is very metro-centric. Doesn't have to be, but that's what it is. You will hear some folks say that part of the reason for that is because meetings are held in the metro area. And to some degree, that's a fair criticism, though it wouldn't make sense to hold a meeting where people aren't. So kind of a chicken egg situation. I think the group is definitely open to not just having meetings in the metro area. We do have video conferencing and phone. But if that were to happen, I think the group would, and I can't speak for the whole group, but I at least would ask that that county commits to attending all 12 meetings and being up to date on those things. So one of the challenges we've had as a group is rehashing the same conversation over and over and over and over and over, because not everyone comes to every meeting, so then you make a decision and oh, wait, no, we gotta talk about it again. So we're getting a lot better about that. And we would like more distribution. Though, should you choose to come, please do be actively engaged. Yes?
You can just repeat the question, Brett, if you want.
Is it, when you say a voting member from the county, is it somebody that works for the county or somebody that lives in the county?
It's from the county perspective. So it's going to be county government, not, I mean, ultimately it's up there choosing. But I think in every case, it's like an assistant director or, it's someone that's part of the county. And again, that's because the purpose is to equitably distribute amongst those that are managing the program at the local level, which are counties. Okay?
But providers, other stakeholders
Can attend, but at this point wouldn't be voting members. The way you become a voting member, though, is through finance sub-PAC. So we don't choose who voting members are, finance sub-PAC does.
So one just process check. By not passing the mic, that just means you need to repeat the question and then answer the question, if that works for you. Thank you.
The question was, is it just someone who lives in the county, or, that I answered previously, just someone who lives in the county or part of county government, part of county government? Yes.
Specifically, in terms of county government, do you mean the department, the Human Services Department of the county?
Yes, if you have to, it could be county commissioner, it could be director, it could be whoever. That's not set in stone. That's up to that entity to figure out through finance sub-PAC. So the group does not decide, finance sub-PAC does. Other questions? All right, let's keep going. Timeline. So this is important because we're making important decisions very soon. So early February is when a finalized recommendation will, hopefully we have a finalized recommendation. Then by mid-February, we're submitting that to sub-PAC. First week in March, it's actually literally presented, and then in April, sub-PAC presents to PAC. So by early February, whatever we're presenting will be done. So there's a lot happening in those few months. Okay. Before I go on, other questions about the process, how this thing comes to be. Okay. So let's talk about the current formula. Right now, there are 3, or depending on I think about it, 4 factors in the formula. Those are income eligibility factor, which makes up 50%. The likely natural enrollment, it's called, which is related to SNAP enrollment. We'll talk more about that. And then climate business factor, 25%, which is related to the market rate survey and CHATS data. So ultimately, it's population data, SNAP data, and then a combination of market rate and CHATS data. We'll talk about that. Next. Income eligibility. So this is half of the formula, and sometimes you can think about this in 2, and that's because of this division. So it's meant to approximate the county's share of income eligible recipients. Right now that we're using children living in households that are at or below 184 FPL, and then breaking it out in 2 different age groups, 30% for under 6 and 20% for 6 to 12. Reason for that, the logic is that there's more days and hours used at 6 and under, and it's more expensive. That break, though, the 30 to 20, is somewhat arbitrary at this point, honestly, but that is the logic. Next. Natural enrollment. So this comes back to counties have a lot of options. SNAP has a lot fewer options. So the purpose of this is to try to take out some of those many options, and doing that through food assistance enrollment. Next, and then I'll take questions on these 3. Business climate factor. So the purpose of this is to recognize that the business climate is different in different counties. It's more expensive in some counties, and county options, opposed to the SNAP bit, do impact utilization. So the way this works is bumping up market rates against CCAP utilization. And it's broken out by age, age group, provider type, that sort of thing. So we're bumping up FTE units. If you're not familiar with that, CCAP is not paid by hour, it's paid by unit, so part-time, full-time, full-time, part-time, and full-time, full-time. Ultimately, though, 1 in that unit is approximately 1 day of care. That's bumped up against the market rate to give then a relative proportion. So there's a lot going on there. Questions on those 3 or 4, depending on how you think about it, factors.
So market rate, do you want that to be higher or lower to get more money?
I would love to repeat that question.
Yep. The question was, market rate, do you want that to be higher or lower to get more money? A higher rate would lead to more money. But it's all relative. So the actual dollar, the pie, is the same size. If your rates are higher, and you're serving the same number of kids as another county, then your portion for this factor would be higher.
So we have a higher cost of living, so what's trying to say?
Somewhat. So the market rate survey, the question was higher cost of living, is that what I'm trying to say? And somewhat. So the market rate survey did cluster by cost of living, but the rate is the market rate.
Yeah, what about higher affluent communities that have a real high cost of living?
So they would be in a higher cost of living cluster for the market rate. So if you're not familiar with the market rate survey, we can certainly provide that for you guys. But the idea of a market rate survey, and we'll talk more about that generally, is to approximate the cost of care in different markets. There's a lot to that. The most recent clustered that by cost of living. So there's 5 clusters: higher cost of living, higher rate, lower cost of living, lower rate. Questions? Yes.
So just 2 questions. So the first on this one, I'm interested in the previous year's CCAP utilization is just for children and households below 130% of that PL. Whereas I think in the previous slide, if you don't mind going back, maybe the first one, sorry. You use children living in households that are at or below 184%.
Great question. The reason for that is data is historical. So 130% was what we used to require. Now it's 165, 184 for the particular census data used was the closest rate. You use other census data to get closer, but that's the closest rate for the income eligibility. But then if you use CCAP data prior to that policy being passed, then it no longer reflects the policy, right? So it takes time. So this next iteration will likely, though there's a lot to discuss yet, but will likely be a different FPL for the utilization as well. Other questions?
Can you go back to natural enrollment?
Yep. What's the question?
You didn't give us time to read it or
Okay.
understand it.
Well, it's SNAP enrollment. That's all it is.
Oh,
Do you want to explain why, like how that's similar, Greg? I mean, Greg, oh my gosh, Brett. why we use SNAP? I know it's on here, but.
Yeah, so again, it's because SNAP has less county option. So CCAP has a ton of county option. So your utilization we capture in the next factor. But this bit is meant to capture natural enrollment. Now, you might argue whether or not it does that. But the group looked at a lot of different potential data points. And SNAP was the most closely related to, without county options, most closely related to, the thought anyway, a natural enrollment as opposed to I do business differently here, which impacts my utilization versus over here. So it's not perfect by any means, and you could certainly argue that maybe it even shouldn't be there. But that's not what I'm talking about now. Just telling you what it is. Other questions? Okay. Any questions about the formula as it exists today? All right, let's move on. Considerations for the next formula. So this is the stuff that we're talking about right now, and this isn't the total. These are just kind of the hot topics. There's a ton of stuff being talked about, but this is the kind of thing that has to be figured out between now and February. Wait lists. So, as most of you know, wait lists are looking a little bit differently than they have in the past. Do we consider them, and if so, how? So if you're on a wait list, how are we estimating the amount of care you would have used, and the type of care and the cost of care? And should we even do that? It's an open question right now. I haven't figured it out, but it's certainly a hot topic at the moment. Tiered reimbursement, same thing. So we know we now have different rates depending on quality level. Should we take that into account when cutting the pie? This has a similar problem to actually our utilization right now in that it has a almost self-fulfilling prophecy aspect to it. So if you think about when you're using historical utilization data, we're allocating based on what you did. and then theoretically you manage within what we give you, and then allocate based on what you did, which was based on what we gave you. Similar kind of thing here. So that makes sense to some degree because you're doing it, right? So we're asking you to pay more for higher quality, shouldn't be paid for that. But if you don't have higher quality, we're not incentivizing it if we give you more money because you already have higher quality. We haven't figured this one out. It's a tough one, but hot topic. Minimum base allocation. This is about small counties and small towns. So very small counties sometimes have just a few families. We allocate based on 4 families and you get a bit. That's a huge impact to your county. Very small impact to the state, but huge impact to your county. So for these very small counties where we're allocating on just a few families, there's some discussion, should there be a minimum, almost a guarantee. But if you get one more family, that's not a great thing. If you lose one family, you're not going to just, no, really it's that direction. But haven't decided whether or not to do this, but another hot topic. Additional cost of living consideration. So this will be discussed at the next meeting, which is next Wednesday. If you're interested in this, after I talk to you a little bit about it, that's the one to call into or attend. This is mostly coming from resort communities, so to speak, that are making the argument that the cost of care due to cost of living in their county is substantially higher, so why are we using the same FPL for poverty population numbers? The counter to that is that that would introduce a county option into the formula for the first time. So we'll see where it goes. Don't know which direction it's going. And when I say county options, so if we allocate to 225, the county decides only to serve up to 165. But when we're allocating to a universe that you're not serving. Historically, that type of option we've tried to pull out. But there's a strong argument that what poverty means is different in different counties. Don't know where we'll go with it, but we're talking about it next Wednesday. So if you're interested in that, that's the one to attend. Ton of other stuff, but these are kind of the hot topics that we really got to figure out in the next 3 months. Yes?
Can you explain waitlist? Brett, will you repeat the question?
Yes. Can I explain waitlists? So counties have waitlists for folks that if I'm unable to, as a county, if I'm unable to serve everyone within my allocation, they go on to a waitlist. Now the way counties deal with waitlists are 64 different ways, but they are now required to hold waitlists in checks. So one of the questions is, if I'm on a waitlist, does that mean would have been served otherwise? Should we then account for it, which we're not right now in utilization? It's only actual care. If we do that, to what degree? How much? How do we throw it in here equitably? May not include it, may include it. If we do, you don't know how. But yes.
How does that impact the provider?
It doesn't. The provider is not a consideration about this. This is an equitable distribution amongst counties.
I have a question on the tier reimbursement. That's a requirement, right?
Yes.
Will you repeat that one for us?
Question about tier reimbursement, that's a requirement. There is a requirement to have a tier reimbursement. There's a state recommendation. Counties can opt out of that if they choose, but then there's a process you have to go through to do so. So part of the issue with this one, again, that self-fulfilling prophecy, if you pay what it is now, it will be different when we start paying. So we'll be looking at what quality was last year and allocating based on that, but you'll be paying for what quality is in 6 months. Yes?
Has there been any discussion about county underspending, for example, if you're not using the allocation you received?
Yep, question about any discussion around underspending and added that overspending. Yes, discussion. As of this point, that is not part of the formula, but yes, it has been discussed.
It's not part of the formula, and it's also not on the list of issues currently under consideration.
That's right, it's not one of our hot topics.
Can you say what it is?
It's being considering over and underspending. So would you take into account a county that left $1 million on the table or one that spent $1 million more? Currently, not part of the allocation. That's been discussed, but it is not one of our hot topics. Yes?
And actually, Brett, doesn't part of that come into the formula as part of the business climate factor and utilization piece of it?
So the Pam, who's also on the committee, was pointing out that doesn't that come into it with part of the business climate factor? And I would say not necessarily in some ways, but business climate factor, you can over or underspend depending on a lot of different things within your business climate factor. So yes, your business climate factor is influenced by a variety of things, but you have similar business climates with some overspending and some underspending. And a lot of that has to do with county options. Some counties have higher risk tolerance than others, some have other dollars they can use, some have no tolerance for overspending. Their commissioners just, that's not going to happen, and there's no local dollars. Anyway, other questions about these hot topics? Okay, let's keep going. So, your turn. What doesn't seem right about the current formula, and what's missing from the formula? This is not your only opportunity, but if you have something off the top of your head, please do speak up.
And Brett, they can participate.
We're going there, yeah.
Okay.
You can participate, but since I'm here, I will bring it back. If you have something you'd like us to consider, I can't promise that it will make its way into the formula, or if it does, it'll make its way into the formula in the way you like it. But I can promise that we talk about it. Nothing. Okay. Well, keep going.
Bill, I have something. Well, I think my questions have gotten maybe just a couple observations. It seems to me that if you have a scenario where a county consistently has need showing up at their door and is taking that on and then spending the money, you have other counties where the need is not showing up at the door and they're not spending money. The formula doesn't account for that. The second, so that's sort of the over-understanding piece of it. The other is, I think, the choice over SNAP to approximate how many families are likely to enroll is an interesting one. And I wonder if there's been any discussion about whether that is actually getting you closer to a proxy of number of children who are likely to show up at your door, or if there's been thought about that.
So I'll start with the first one, and you're right, that over-understanding is not accounted for, and one might argue that it should be, but it has been discussed over and over. It is not currently a hot topic. So I'll mention that it came up, but it's not a new idea. The SNAP bit, that's one that a lot of different ideas have been thrown out there for that. I'm not sure, maybe we'll even see if that makes it in this formula. I don't know whether or not it should, and if so, is that the way to do it? I think the idea is that aside from estimates of like eligible to likely, it's looking at actual people served by taking out county action. That's the idea. Whether or not it does that, that's certainly a
It just seems knowing that SNAP is at 130%, similar to, as you acknowledge, not having some sort of acknowledgement of the self-sufficiency standard as compared to a poverty standard. You're going to make it harder for those communities that have a higher self-sufficiency standard to have their unmet need adequately reflected when the cutoff is 130%.
Yeah, and so this comes back to taking county options out. Now the reason that was there historically is 130% was the floor, it no longer is. So maybe a less good measure now. But the idea originally was that, all right, well that's what counties have to do. So it makes sense. They may choose to do more. But then that comes back to, do we vary it based on cost of living or self-sufficiency? And that's what we're talking about next Wednesday. But that does add the county option in the formula. So, yeah.
Let's pass the mic for these comments, if you don't mind. I just don't want it to be missed by people.
So what would the formula look like if you took SNAP out of the code? I just left it blank, I'll put it in there.
Different. I don't know. I don't know the numbers. We can show that to you. Like,
Can you pass the mic, please? To record it.
Cannot manipulate the food systems as a human program. So I get that. Who's to say it's important at all?
The committee decided it was. That's it. You decide who the committee is, you decide how the process works. You can disagree with that, many people do. I would say not everybody on the committee agrees with it, but that is what the committee came up with.
Speak up on the mic because it's not really attached to the recording, so.
When you say the attendance of the full-time, are you counting an individual family bringing their child every day, or are you just saying how much is the county overall showing up to a child care center every day?
It's total care units actually utilized. So in other words, care that was provided to a child. And it's in units that family doesn't matter. It's, if you had 2 kids full day, it would be 2. If you had 1, it would be 1. It's care provided to child. Yes?
It's a two-fold question. First of all, remind me again, and I think I lost you. How much of this is dependent on the market rate survey?
1/4 has 1 of 2 components.
Okay, and how do you ensure that the market rate survey in that area is accurate?
It's a different question, and we'll talk about the market rate survey next.
Two things. This year also that the over-understanding that part of it why it's not a hot topic is because with tiered reimbursement, we're not expecting to see a lot of understanding this year.
That's true. Yep, that's right. That would not be a projection, but that seems like a very reasonable statement.
The other thing is that we do know that there are some counties that they may only have so many childcare slots, and that might be why they might have a wait list or there's understanding. So that's kind of goes on out there. Another thing is the food assistance, whether or not to use a SNAP data or not. This year we looked at whether or not to use Medicaid or there are other ones that would really show that likely to enroll. And this SNAP data, I think it was, I'm trying to think, this was also part of the major, or looking at this even like 4 years ago. So this has been one of the, hasn't this been one of the long-time majors? Or factors within this was the SNAP data?
That's right, and I would say actually the formula hasn't changed in any major sense since I've been here, which has been 3 years. Minor shifts, but the big idea, about the same. Now we have a lot of discussion about it every year, but thus far, it has remained more or less the same. Okay, other questions?
We actually have a question for the webinar. Yeah, sorry. This is not one speaking. The question from the webinar was, have counties that consistently overspend considered purchasing child care and TANF dollars, included, from other counties that have higher amounts?
I would say some counties have and some counties haven't. That would be county.
Sorry, last question. Has there been any evaluation of whether or not the factors that go into this index are actually measuring what they're intended to measure? So some back-end analysis to say, okay, we're going to use SNAP data. Does that actually predict in those communities how many families show up at the door? Things like that.
So there's a lot of problems with that, and that comes back to the county option. So it's difficult because this drives behavior, which then drives what we're doing. Yeah. So no, I couldn't say SNAP definitely predicts how many folks would be at the door, but part of the idea is that because counties can do different things that would impact that, including what your university is. It's difficult. Yeah.
Oh, great. So Brett, can you tell us again how we can be involved?
Yep, and that's coming up next. Let's do that from you. Okay. So you can attend the meeting. The next one, which is about should cost of living or self-sufficiency of some sort be taken more into account. That'll be the main hot topic next time. I'm sure it'll be a very lively, good discussion. Next Wednesday, from 1 to 4, This is actually first time in a long time we're doing it in Denver, but it'll be in Denver. There's video conferencing available if you'd like to attend. You can also work with your county to ensure your county is a voting member. This is done through Finance CCCAP, and if you don't know how to do that, we can help you with that, but they're the ones that approve voting members for this task group. You can also provide feedback directly to co-chairs. Co-chairs are Greg Smith, he's our CCAP administrator, and Brian McKenna with Adams County. So those two are the co-chairs of the committee at the moment. If you just want to, you don't have time to show up to these things and you really can't commit the amount of time it would take or whatever, you can send ideas directly to them.
Where
Yes.
is the meeting?
1575 Sherman. That is,
Want to tell them where they can find meeting times?
what's that?
Where they find meeting times?
I'll turn that over to our website person that fully looked at our website, our new website.
So we post these on the OAC website, so ColoradoOfficeOfEarlyChildhood.com. Under resources, we have on the calendar tab, so you can find that there. And we also have a space called meetings, trainings, conferences that we can note some information about these meetings as well.
And just a reminder that these PowerPoints will be available to you all after this meeting, so feel free to take pictures or figuratively write things down, but you will have access to this information after this meeting. Okay, other questions about the allocation formula before you move on to market rate survey? Okay. Market rate survey. So, why is this important? Is what I'm going to talk about. This is, alright, so this is what I plan on talking about. If this isn't what you guys want, then I can maybe help you out, but I'm planning on talking about the importance of the market rate survey, so why the heck we care, the details of the last market rate survey, and I won't get into super detail, but we'll high level at least. And then examples of considerations for the next market rate survey. Other things that folks would want to get out of this presentation? Okay. Yes. I'd have to ask our website person again. But it's on the website. I'm not sure. I haven't surveyed the website closely enough. No, but it is available on the website, and if you're unable to find it, let me know. I'm more than happy to direct it to you. All right, importance of the market rate survey. So why this matters. First of all, it's prior benefits. So if you want this money, we got to do it. So it's going to happen. Whether or not we want it, we do want it, but it's going to happen. It also informs state recommendations. So these rate recommendations that are impacting everyone so much, informed by market rate survey. So the question is, how do you know if it's good market rate survey? Well, you don't necessarily. And no market rate survey is perfect. We'll talk about some of the limitations to the last one, and we hope to do better this time. But ultimately, this is our best guess as to what it costs to provide care. Well, actually, let me correct that. The price for care, not what it costs, across the state. Difference between price and cost is it might cost me $30 to provide something, but I charge $50. This market rate survey is about the $50, not about the $30. Might also cost me $60 to provide something, and I charge $50. It's about the $50, not the $60. It's not how much it costs to provide care, it's what are people charging. All right, and historically, but it doesn't have to be, it's not like in legislation it has to be, it has been part of the CCAP allocation formula. So not only is it informing our recommendations, but it's informing how we're cutting that pie. Okay, next. All right, so 2015 market rate survey was done by a third-party group of analysts conducted by University of Colorado Denver. In addition to the market rate, there are a bunch of questions about barriers to providers in providing CCAP. The data is maintained by UCD, the report is public. So when I say data, I don't mean you'll get some fairly granular data, but we don't have the raw data at the state level. We just have the reports. That is public though, and you can find it on our website. I will help you get there if you can. Okay. Here are some things that need to be different this time. First, we need to include stakeholder feedback early. We don't think that happened as well as it could have last time. To some degree, that has to do with the third-party nature, but we think we can do a better job this time. So beginning in late 2016 this year, we want to start gathering folks at least at 2 places. One before we collect data, and once we collect it, prior to analysis. So if you don't collect data the right way, then it's difficult to analyze it the right way. But even once you collect it, there's a lot of choices to make in analysis. Actually, I'm going to skip to this one down here. Comes into it. So we would like stakeholders to inform state decisions around analysis. That didn't happen last time. It was third-party analysts that made those analytical decisions. There's reasons for that. But this time, when I'm defending the market rate survey, I want it to be decisions that we made and not someone else's. Informed by you guys, but at least defending our own choices. And then we want to make the data public. So we believe the right data should be public and made publicly available. So that when we're arguing about this, we're all arguing in the same set of facts. We can't do that right now today with the market rate survey, because even the state doesn't have the raw data. So include stakeholder feedback early, make it public, and make the decisions stakeholder-informed state decisions as opposed to third-party analyst decisions. That's what we're thinking now. May not turn out that way, but that's our best thinking right now. Questions about the facts?
Could you tell me a little bit more about, you said something about bringing the stakeholders together at the beginning and the end stage. Tell me a little bit more about that in regions, statewide, what does that look like?
Yeah, we don't know yet, but it's not just beginning and end stage, it's prior to data collection and prior to analysis. So, and what it looks like in terms of how they're convened and all that stuff, we don't know yet. Trying to hammer that out. But the reason those 2 elements are important is, again, you don't collect it in the right way. You don't, garbage in, garbage out, right? And then analysis has a lot of choices that you make that have massive implications. So we want to have input at those 2 phases. What that looks like, I couldn't tell you right now today.
I applaud that, and I can't emphasize enough what you said. Gathering that data, how we gather it, making sure that we are gathering it for how our providers actually think. They're working 12 hours a day. You're throwing research and throwing something at them. That's not something they're going to look at. And not knowing the percentage that we collect from the various disaggregated data. I think all of that is just so important.
Agreed. And we hope to get stakeholder feedback prior to making those decisions this time. Other questions? Okay. Mm-hmm. Go to next. All right. So these advisory panels, and I can't tell you what that looks like, but it's getting that input before those decisions are made. Now, a lot of folks aren't going to agree with those decisions. That's just the nature of this. But we'd like that discussion to happen prior to the decision making. Here's what we're thinking right now. We don't know if this is the way it'll work, but contracted data collection. So we don't have the capacity to go out and collect the data. But, so pay for that, but state analysis informed by stakeholders and public data. So not only are we doing the analysis with your input, but we're providing you guys with the same data. So should you choose to analyze it differently, you can make that argument. That's perfectly fine. We're arguing from the same facts. So, very high level at this point, early stage, but this is what we're thinking. Questions on this? Yes?
So this gets all done next year, so we can have new tiered rates that would be implemented in 2018, with this filing, of which may make a difference on the whole allocation methodology, but still looking backwards and looking forward.
So those are two different things. One is, how does this inform the allocation? No, no.
Right, but to just say that, that's another factor as part of this, if we could be changing our tiered rates.
Could be, but that would be a policy decision. So policy decision, allocation decision, this is just information. The information may inform the policy decisions, but there's nothing in the statute that requires market rates to be an allocation. So we could decide that's not in there next time. Or we could decide we can't use these rates because this is even worse than last time, and so let's use the previous rates. Really hope that's not the case, but that's possible. Right? Just information, trying to get better information. Yes?
So from a county perspective, just kind of think ahead. So it could be possible that in 2018 that we could be changing our rates again based on who all decides from a policy standpoint and the validity of this information.
Among many possibilities, that is a possibility, yes. That is a policy decision. Yes.
I hope this isn't true at this regulatory level, but when I was in the state senate, lobbyists for the counties had a much stronger voice than people representing providers and families. And so how do you account for that to make sure that that balanced input is coming in and that you really truly hear the opinions of families and providers?
So we do not influence the legislature, that's not our role. Though we do our best to hear from our stakeholders. In terms of having stronger lobbyists from one group versus another, that's nothing we can do something about. That is the nature of the political system, and we are not allowed to impact that political system. Yes?
Wait, there's more to that answer.
Okay.
Edie, are you also just talking about making sure there's a voice for providers and parents? So, yes. One really, really good way or a vehicle for that is to engage with the early childhood councils who are engaged directly with the state. So that's a very powerful way to carry messages back to the Office of Early Childhood who are helping make these types of policy decisions. Early childhood councils also have to be partnering with their counties, their county human service departments. So that's another way for early childhood councils and county human service departments to work better together and kind of understand the different stakeholder perspectives. Does that answer your question? Okay.
All right. Other questions? Great. You go. So, what doesn't seem right about the current market rate survey, and perhaps you guys aren't on that first in the market rate survey to answer that, but if you are, please speak up. Yes.
I think this is just a backup to the two comments that have been made. Because one of the things that happened in our county is we really question the amount of participation, where it came from. So are we looking at percentages of participation in the upcoming market rate survey? Do we need to have in order for that to be accurate in regards to our data, we need to have a certain percentage?
So, a couple answers to that question. One is that the methodology is not yet developed. So, yes, it is important to understand the methodology and ensure the methodology accurately reflects the market as much as possible. We're hoping to invite stakeholder feedback prior to in-data question analysis to have those kind of discussions. But since there isn't a methodology right now, I can't tell you what it will or will not do. The other bit to that is a lot of times what happens with these data, and I imagine whatever we do will have to happen this time as well, is you weight data because you don't have enough representation for certain entities. Yes.
So I think we need to add somewhere in here that is a hold harmless provision so that as the formula changes, then it will be too drastic. But you can 1%, 2% hold harmless kind of thing.
So hold harness would be part of the allocation discussion, and certainly that is always part of those discussions if there's ever major shifts. But that wouldn't be part of our rate survey, be part of what the allocation committee chooses. Other questions? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else in terms of either what wasn't working or what we need to do differently next time that we haven't already talked about. Okay. Is that all right. Any other questions about our grade survey before I head to comments? Okay. Looks like Aaron wants to say something.
So do stay tuned though on the market survey because we will have next steps and ways for people to get involved. We do have some lessons learned and we'd like to hear back from you as well. Next, we're just going to do an overview, a very high-level overview of a couple of technology modernization projects that we are undertaking. We heard at the last CCAP meeting that we needed to better use technology to help the customer experience, both at the county level, parent level, provider level. We hear that loud and clear. Luckily, we already have a few things in the works. And so Greg Smith is going to talk about both CHATS modernization and attendance tracking modernization. So.
And I'm excited to say I have a slide. I didn't know I had any slides. I'm told to stand over this way because for the folks on the phone, I think it picks up better. Is that right? So I passed the first test. So in regards to CHATS no, no, we're back. Okay.
Talk loudly. Talk loudly.
Loudly? Okay. Is that better? I tend to talk too loud. Well, people's ears go. So in the back, it's so in regards to CHATS modernization, as many of you know, we're embarking on a very exciting effort to replace the current chat system, which is what the counties use for all their tracking and authorizations, and what results in all the payments that are made regarding CCAP children. So this is a long journey that we are in the early stages of, and we're very excited. We're going to be moving to some more modern technology, and that will enable us to do more with our system that will hopefully help out everyone who's involved with CCAP, particularly the county folks who will be able to utilize things hopefully in a easier, more efficient fashion than the current system allows. So without going into too much detail on the technology, we will be moving to a Salesforce application for those that are familiar with that. And why that's important is that we're going to be launching a number of different systems in the Salesforce environment. And that will allow all those systems to communicate more seamlessly and better, which again, in the end, makes things better for counties and providers and for families. Related to that, we also are beginning our attendance tracking effort, which actually we have our kickoff meeting tomorrow, which is another exciting effort that's going on simultaneously with CHATS Mod. And the attendance tracking efforts is with a different vendor, but running concurrently, and will replace all of the CCAP cards and POS systems that we currently use. So much like the CHATS effort, we're going to be modernizing the attendance tracking so that it's using more up-to-date technology, and hopefully that'll be a little more flawless, a little easier to use, and result in better experiences for families and providers. So with the attendance tracking, all of the landlines won't be necessary anymore, the POS systems will go away, the cards will go away, and it will be more of a smart app that you can use on your phone or your iPad or your provider's phone or whatever the case may be. So there's a number of and desktops. Yep. So this brings its own challenges. With the current system, we've had challenges with analog phone lines, and we've had providers that were struggling with retrofitting their facility with an analog phone line. And so that won't be a struggle in the future world. But it will also come with its own struggles. We do have parent for them or don't have them on a regular basis. And so if we're using smarter technology, we have to think of that. And so there'll be some changes related to that as well. There's a couple different options, and there's a lot of things out there that can help with parents and their ability to log in. And we'll be jumping over a number of hurdles along the way, but hopefully about a year from now, we'll be looking at a new chat system and a new attendance tracking system. So both of those efforts will be underway starting tomorrow, and will result in better experiences, I think, across the board. Are there questions? I'll pause there for a second and see if there's any questions. I see a question. It's in the back of the room. What are you wearing?
When you say that they're going to run side by side, does that mean another portal that we as providers have to keep up with, or behind the scenes they'll be running side by side, but for us it will seem like one portal?
Well, there will be two separate systems, but from a provider standpoint, that's a bad spot. From a provider standpoint, you will be looking at the attendance tracking system, not chats. So the chat system will be primarily for county use in terms of entering authorizations.
There's some talk of tying it into the PSSP, the provider.
Right, let's talk about that for a minute. So many of your providers use PSSP now, and we are in discussion with these vendors about what PSSP could look like in one or the other of these new worlds. We haven't come to any grand conclusions yet. We're still kind of in the negotiation phase. So PSSP could be in one of these systems. It could be standalone. It could change or it could stay the same. There's really, all the options are available right now with PSSP. So you will still log into PSSP. I have a feeling Aaron wants to add to this, so I'm going to walk over this way.
Of the count.
Hand over the mic.
No need to follow. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of put out there, that it's very high level right now, and that's partly because we're just getting started with our vendors, and we don't want to overpromise, right? However, we do have some things that we're definitely keeping in mind. One, we want that county and provider experience to be improved dramatically. So any way in which we are able to do that, we will. So if we are able to have the systems work in the background, but as far as you as a provider are concerned, you're seeing one seamless system, we are definitely looking at that. Two, we are looking at addressing fraud. I know that's an issue that counties are concerned about. So making sure that the technology we have is the smartest and best at detecting fraud and fraudulent behaviors and patterns and things like that. So that's another issue I think we've heard from the conference. So these are the types of high-level goals that we plan to address. Also, all the technology right now is on the same platform. So we'll be using Salesforce for both, as far as we know. And that will also allow a lot better communication with data and things between chats and attendance tracking. PSSP is iffy right now because it's going to be on the same platform. It may stay where it is. But it's at least going to help some of that data transfer information. So we'd love to hear other concerns from this group so that when we're kicking these things off, we're not forgetting anything.
So, given that you're sort of looking down the road and making sure that this new system is flexible and responsive, I think one of the things that has been the shift in the program has been from being just a work support to a true two-generation program. And when we talk to providers about how they offer care in the marketplace, it is not an attendance-based system. It is an enrollment-based system. And my son doesn't go to preschool because he's not feeling well. The provider still has to keep the lights on. And as we kind of continue that journey towards making sure that this is an education program and not just a work support program. Will the system anticipate a day where we might be interested in looking at enrollment-based models rather than attendance-based models, contracting for slots rather than just you show up and you get care as you would in a drop-in facility, as opposed to the continuity we all support for children. So I think I realize that that is a much bigger conversation and one that has fiscal implications that people get nervous about, but we are serious about providing stability in our provider community and treating this as a two-generation program that has school readiness goals and not just work support goals. One of the biggest obstacles is having attendance rather than an enrollment-based system. And I just want to make sure that as you're making these investments, considering what a system can do, that it might be able to anticipate a day when we move from that model.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason for modernization is to ensure we have nimble technology so that as we change policies, that technology can keep up with that as well. And I think one thing that was very important to us is that the technology removed stigma or separation of those children receiving subsidy from those private paid children. So that's one of the reasons that the mobile technology is so appealing to us, knowing that we have to have desktop and other kind of landline type technology for areas of the state where cell service may not be as reliable, but trying to think outside the box in terms of how we can blur those lines, and then when we get to things like contract for slot, with this tool, then be able to support those providers in that way as well. So nimble is definitely important. Any other questions, concerns? So we actually post updates on the chat modernization right now on the website. The user portal or is it the actual website? Do you guys know? It's the website, the actual OEC website. And we will be doing the same thing with attendance tracking. So you can kind of follow along and see what the milestones are that are being achieved for both of these projects. One more question?
Do you know if families would be able to choose their child care center through this technology, or would that still require going through a caseworker to get your child care provider switched around? Because right now I notice there's quite a delay for that to happen, which makes us as providers sitting around waiting multiple weeks to find out, is this family going to really come here or not?
That's a really good point. I think we could take that back to the developer and think about how that would help facilitate communication between the county, the family, and the provider.
My question is, do you have providers as part of this group as you build this out? I mean, a real life provider that's actually on the ground, working every day?
Yes. Yeah.
Not like people talking on behalf of them?
User profiles. Okay, I'll just. Yes. So we actually, our vendor will be going around and doing user profile requirement sessions. So those profiles are then, so sessions essentially to inform what a user profile is. So what does the provider need the system to do? What do they look at normally? What are their challenges? What does a parent want this system to do? What does a county caseworker need that system to do? So big chunk of their upfront work is developing those user profiles, and that's through actual interface with those populations.
Yes.
Yeah. And they've actually done a pretty good job already of identifying who those users are, and that's just a matter of developing those profiles. So we will have focus groups.
Yeah, similar to the CHAPS modernization effort where we've done a lot of visioning outreach and talked to a lot of stakeholders. We envision the same sort of process for attendance tracking where we'll try to solicit feedback from providers and communities about what would work for them and things that we could include. It's probably not likely that we'll be able to include everything, at least not in the first go around. It's a journey for both of these systems, and what we don't or are not able to include in the first iteration because of funding or timelines, we could certainly look at for subsequent rollouts.
we talk about minimum viable product?
We did not talk about it. But now that you brought it up, I think we should talk about it. So with CHAPS modernization, we talk a lot about minimum viable product, or MVP, which basically is our motto for rolling out the system successfully on the first go-around. And the MVP includes all the functionality that we're used to today in CHAPS. And that allows us to basically replace the system within the budget and timeframe that we have, and then roll out subsequent iterations of the system with new functionality or enhancements or upgrades or things that everybody knows we need, but we just didn't have the time or the money to roll out the first rollout. And I imagine attendance tracking will follow a similar path where we will, we will be looking at what do we need to be able to pay for care that is received, and then look at, I think, for future enhancements, what do we need that would make the product even better.
So the model for both vendors has been simpler and nimble. Those are the two kind of key values that we've placed on both projects. So.
Yeah, the whole philosophy around technology now has changed over when these systems originally rolled out. Under a normal software development cycle, you're looking at trying to get everything and anything in the first rollout, or you'll never ever get it again. And I think the thinking around these development processes has advanced to the point where we know what we need to get our jobs done, but we can't possibly think of everything that a new system would need until we roll that system out. So rather than trying to bite off more than we can chew and roll out a huge system that may not be successful, we're trying to be a little more nimble, as Aaron put it, and roll out something that does the job we need now, and then we will enhance it as time goes on.
So thank you. So hopefully those updates, additional information that we've spent the first chunk of this meeting covering gives additional stimulates additional ideas, because after our break, we're going to come back. We're going to focus in on at least 4 areas and really take ideas that have been generated to date and solidify them into recommendations to share with executive director feedback. So we'll take a 15-minute break. We'll come back together at 5 till, and we'll do more stakeholder work. We'll come back together, I'm going to give you assignments, and then you will have loads of time, 30 to 40 minutes in group conversation. So this next section, we wanted to take everything that we've talked about over the last 2.5 meetings and really hone in on the recommendations that the stakeholder group would like to submit to Executive Director Mika. So we'll do that through table conversations. The first thing that each table will need to do is to identify somebody who's going to take really good notes. And that person, that document needs to come to me at the end of the meeting. So we need a note taker, and also someone who's going to be willing to report out the recommendations that your group identified. So a note taker and a reporter. You'll have a table guide, and then we'll walk you through these steps. You're going to further define the problem. I'm going to give you 4 different areas to focus in on. You'll take an area, further define the problem. What's behind it? What are the issues? What's really the cause here? What do we want to address? You'll identify solutions or recommendations. Typically, a group will come up with lots of ideas. Those are kind of the solutions that you'll capture, and then you're going to actually apply criteria to really hone in and refine those ideas into recommendations. So you'll apply these criteria. Is it action-oriented? Using good action verbs. Are you recommending to expand, to change, to enhance, to engage, versus working through exploratory? You're going to be specific. Think as specific as possible so the office and executive director can know exactly what you're recommending. Solution focused. So you first have to identify and understand the problem, to know what you want in your recommendation. But the recommendation itself should be forward-facing on the solution side. And really focusing on things that are system-wide, a system-wide impact, rather than one particular isolated, this happened one time kind of thing. So really be thinking about systemic changes or recommendations. So the 4 topic areas based on our last couple of conversations, we're going to have people self-select and generate recommendations are around, next slide, strategies that facilitate providers' acceptance of CCAP. That will be one group. Actions meet right up here. Right? Somebody just said yes, right here. Try to stay away from the microphone things. The second group, strategies that support the stability of child care, especially for the birth to 3 population, will be right here. The third group, strategies that enhance communication. And you can think about all different kinds of communication. Communication between parent and provider, provider and county, county and state will be in that far back corner. And the fourth group is a group that will explore if there's any recommendations or recommendations might be around the local use of quality dollars. And this one, we want this group, and this is on your sheet, to really think about the balance between equity, local control of decision making, and the use of quality resources in a strategic way. That group will be in that far back corner. So of these 4 topics, I just want to get a sense where people are thinking they might go. Who might go to strategies that facilitate providers' acceptance of CCAP? Okay, so we've got a handful of people. Strategies to support the stability of child care, especially the birth to 3 population. Great. Strategies that enhance communication. Okay. And local use, exploration of local use of quality dollar, really thinking equity, balancing with systems-wide needs. Great. So is there any topic that you really want to be talking about and generating recommendations around that is not on this list? Is there some other topic that somebody wants to host a recommendation conversation around? I'll go with pregnant pause, just to give you everything. Okay, so you have your assignments. We will split up again. The first group, trying to facilitate providers, acceptance of CCAP, stability of child care, communication, and local use
the sheet that will help guide your conversation.
Aaron, is he kicked off?
Oh, exciting. Where'd you find it? Oh, yeah. You see, We're going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. Not a really safe conversation. Still with you. You're not going to want to miss these good set of instructions. Great, welcome back. Great conversation. It was fun to travel around and see how problems became solutions, became recommendations. So what we're going to do now, we're going to try something live in real time. Please repeat. We're going to give it a whirl. We're going to go table by table. Whoever's going to report for you shares just briefly the problem or the issue that you were tackling and addressing. And then some tables may have more than one recommendation. We're going to go one recommendation at a time. Share with the whole group your recommendation. We'll ask the whole group then if there's any clarifying questions, any friendly amendments or additions to that recommendation. And then we're going to use clicker polling to get a sense of this group's support for that particular recommendation. We're giving this a whirl. We're hoping it works. Which team is going to be the guinea pig to get this started? I heard it's not this group. you come forward wherever you want? I know. Share again the issue you were addressing, and then you have one recommendation for the first recommendation.
Okay. Hello, on panels with Greenville County. Thank you to my group over here going on for reasoning. I apologize. So our problem was strategies and enhanced communication between provider, and county, and state. So one of our major defining problems was basically the noise of communication, and I believe that I spoke about that earlier. And some of that entails different messages coming from 64 different counties, and we wanted to make sure to, I guess, state that that doesn't necessarily mean that's bad, because sometimes a consistent message through statewide doesn't meet the needs of every community, but we do, so we want to recognize that, but yet sometimes that helps to create a lot of unnecessary noise. And then communication between counties was another piece of that. And so some of our recommendations were, and I guess I'm going to go with the big one, as the parent portal. I know group, I think that was kind of what we decided, similar to a provider portal that breaks down into just what I as a parent can access for my children in care, for the provider in my care, having training on there. So this is how I do the POS system right now as it is. If it gets to tracking and a different attendance method next year, then this is what that looks like. How do I identify quality, who are quality providers in my area. So just a mass of some information, and then those trainings would then be consistent statewide. That information would be consistent statewide. And it would tell what my authorization is, when my redetermination is due, what does that look like, what my parental is. Did I miss anything else? Okay, that was our big one.
So can I repeat back? What I heard was to create a parent portal so parents are the audience for facilitate consistent training information across the state and updates. Yes. Any clarifying questions for that? Great. Any friendly amendments, additions, or changes? Of course, Bill.
I think it's a great idea, and maybe just the list of things are identified by our companies. One that we hear, and I know as well, is how close am I to the close? You know, if I received this extra wage increase, would I lose my benefit? And so, you know, across different things, being able to sort of know. I think that way you would probably have fewer parents modify behavior, knowing that they can keep that.
You've got that friendly addition? Yeah. Any other? Oh, my goodness, now I'm on. Catch your fire up.
Well, again, I think it's such a great idea. It's like, wow, this is excellent. Could there also be a place then where parents see, where they could put in their zip code, where they are, to look to see which centers are and the ratings? Again, you know, it's one of those things where right now we'll have them come in, we'll do what we could with that. I can see where this could grow a bit.
And maybe I'll make a friendly amendment based upon that, using zip code to know what county you need to access benefits from.
Because zip codes cross county boundaries.
Street addresses, something that tells you what county.
Oh, I think that's really important too, yeah.
Because what I do in the metro have quite a transient population, and they can, I mean, you cross Colfax and you're suddenly Adams County, or you go the other way and you're different counties. So maybe by street address, where, you know, where do I need to access benefits now? Because I think from hearing from the two providers at our table, I think that is sometimes an issue, is parents moving from one county to the other and not, they don't let, the parent doesn't let the county know that they've moved, and so an authorization runs out in one county and now they're stuck with, you know, no authorization. Great.
So I'm sensing great energy and enthusiasm, and you probably end up with a working group right this moment listing out all the functions of this, but really it's the idea of a parent-focused place where information, updates, resources, tools could be available across the state. Shall we vote? We're not voting, sorry, your level of support. So for those of you who have never clickered before, one by one.
We're doing one by one.
It's not in comparison.
No, not in comparison, it's just your level of support for this person.
Just how excited.
If you've never flickered before, you will push. What is your level of support for the recommendation you just heard? You push the button that is related to your response. Strong support will be A.
You tell us when to start voting.
Yes, you may start voting now. Polling is open. We've got 24 responses now. There will be a light that flickers at the top. If your light flickers red, that's the only time it's an issue. If you vote A, but you really want it B, put in B, it will record your last vote. Yeah, so what is your level of support for creating a parent portal?
I mean, what question is this recommendation is trying to address?
This issue is addressing a communications issue. Oh, thank you so much. Any last voters? This will be our end of 32. Curious where this one is?
Oh, why didn't it tell us?
Okay, go ahead and vote again on this one, but yeah, just do this one over. Let's see what happens. We'll let you know.
Couple more? One more. Okay, I'm going to close the voting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, phew, we got it.
Write it down.
I know. Can one of you like record up there like 70%? I'm just afraid. I gotta check something to make sure the first one wasn't recorded and gets me all out of whack. So hold on just a second. It did. It just we didn't see it. Okay. Ah! So at 11 and 12.
Okay, which table wants to go next? Again, you're going to share the issue that you were addressing, how you thought of the problem, and then recommendation.
Here, can we just... I know what our issue was. Oh, the ability for that to take it.
Okay, our issue was.
And we can take pictures if we need before I go meeting.
Our table discussed specifically all of the burdens and barriers to accepting CCAP first. And that led us to an overarching recommendation of reinforcing better collaboration between early childhood councils and county human services, and particularly in large counties when you have a separate case management office from the financial office, you really need to facilitate all of those conversations because they operate sometimes separately. And underneath that, we wanted to reinforce early childhood council's role in providing stronger business practice training and coaching to providers, but also making sure we're involving the county's business offices so that we're all messaging the same thing, and then reducing the administrative burden to accept CCAP, and we think that that can be achieved through better communication, better technology, better business practices, again, with needing that collaboration between the counties and the councils to help that happen. Are those 3 different recommendations? It's all under that umbrella. Okay. That
friendly amendments, changes, or additions?
I thought we got all the time. Well, there's something that we talked about too.
The only thing that I might suggest is that there are about a gazillion different distribution lists out of CDHS, and sometimes we're on the one that we need to be on, and sometimes we're not on the one that we need to be on. And so I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know how to go about reconciling that and making sure the right people are included, but that to me speaks to that communication piece. Makes sense?
I love the idea and I totally support it. My thoughts are just the more specifics. You know, how do you develop that stronger collaboration at that level when sometimes, as we talked about, there's two different modes of thought. One's really concentrating on wait list and making sure you feel that totally respect that. And there's another one on quality and you have a good relationship and you run two different things.
So let's clarify that. So the focus of this recommendation is to reduce the administrative burden on providers.
Correct.
But repeat that for folks who may still be on.
So the main point behind reinforcing collaboration is to reduce the administrative burden for providers. But, you know, Denver Health Council brought up a good point, which is in House Bill 1317, counties are now required to consult with their early childhood councils when determining rates, provider rates.
Only if they aren't going with the state one. They have to, if they're going with the state.
That's right. If they're opting out of the state recommended rates. So, but that's that was a way, that was a mechanism in which Denver's early childhood council was able to increase collaboration with Denver County.
Okay, do not touch your clickers yet. Hold on just a minute. Okay, polling is open for your level of support for this particular recommendation around reinforcing collaboration between counties and councils in order to reduce administrative. Oh, we're back to 32, and results say strong support and support. And the heaviest, a little bit of no support and neutral. Anybody from the no support want to provide anything, any insights or thoughts? You don't have to. What would it move you up the level of support line? That's okay. Next group. Very much so. This group. Okay. So remember, remind us the issue you were addressing, and then clearly the recommendation moving forward.
Our issue is the stability of child care, especially birth to 3 population. So this is a very complicated issue. Basically, the problem we were addressing was the mobility of the CCAP population. And they move around for a number of reasons. They could change counties. And we have a number of solutions, but I guess the main one, we jumped around. But our main focus of a solution is what's been talked about earlier, basing CCAP enrollment on enrollment rather than individual attendance, and what we're calling a pay-for-slots approach, and using the Colorado Preschool Program as a model where there are slots allocated. However, we do know that the number from each county to specific providers varies, and the allocations or the amount, the reimbursements, and a lot of things vary from county to county. And I don't know that we fully came up with a solution for that, but try to work out the details in the pay for slots approach. Well, we're a six-headed monster.
Part of our solution that talked about enrollment a little bit also started a little prior to that, and that was in the education of parents and helping them really truly understand the importance of continuity of care, and even if they are moving and transient, how we can help retain their child care in that continuity. So we talked about the education, and we actually thought that was a great communications piece to add, and not that we're going to jump back up there, but to be able to utilize that platform in educating parents as well. I just want to make a clarifying point. So at our table, we had a lot of conversations as to what stability actually means. So that's why you kind of see the polarity in our responses, is because we looked at it from a stability standpoint of the child as well as the business. Because if we don't stabilize the business piece of it, we can't help all the families we want to. So it's kind of twofold as far as stability goes.
And then the recommendation of having the head of who you're bringing this to look at CPP as the model of how they started to get kids to believe, or families to believe in preschool. And all the work that was done there, why are we going to go back and recreate the wheel? We just need to take what they did to build that interest and understanding for families of preschool importance, to get that understanding for the birth to 8, or birth to 0, yeah, birth to 3.
Little one. Before we ask, we're going to ask a clarifying question.
Yes.
Because I've heard a couple different recommendations, and I actually think what you just said is a different recommendation around studying how we went about building understanding, awareness, public engagement for 4 to 5-year-olds. How do we learn from that and apply it to this point? Is that a separate recommendation?
I kind of saw this to my, because that was more about the educating or creating stability at the family level and the child level, and then the conversation about stability of providers is more about how can we pilot something where we're looking at a pay for slots versus pay for time. So I do think we kind of had to.
Right, but we also said address the family first and the providers second.
Maybe another hour.
Great. Clarifying questions from the broader group? Or any amendments? Sure. And so then when we're voting, we're going to be voting on recommendation. Yeah, right. We're going to end up doing 2. Okay. And so then when you guys want your terminology of that on paper slots, is that the same thing as contract paper slots? It's totally available. Okay.
So that was a part of it, but it was also really changing over, making the change from attendance-based to enrollment-based. So I will focus on that piece, not the contract response, because our ultimate solution was looking at enrollment-based payment rather than attendance-based payment.
To investigate that or research that, to see what it will cost, for example.
That would be the important step.
Yeah, one of the,
Okay, that's a friendly method, I would say.
so removing paper slots first on that recommendation.
It's more CCAP enrollment, yes, based on the norms rather than the feasibility. Can you, sorry, because I lost my train of thought, can you restate the issue again? Oh, yeah, what's the issue? Where's my mic? Lawrence.
We're going to do 2 different recommendations. I'm only going to say one at a time.
Well, I think you should start with the recommendation 1 would be stability of the family. So understanding how do we get the families to realize birth to 3 is important, does not drop off. Because once you get that, and then you say, okay, funding it, how do you fund that to keep the center stable? So that
Yes. So my issue is the way I got this written, I'm trying to track it and connect with the slide. I'm going to add them out of order, but I understand that in the report they would go in the other order. Sorry, this is, I never tried to do this one person real time, so thank you for bearing with me. The first one you're going to click on, not yet until I change the slide, is the recommendation to explore CCAP enrollment based on enrollment rather than attendance.
I don't like the word explore. I think we should say study or research.
Study or research? Are we good with that?
Yeah, sure.
Study or research. Okay. So we're going to study or research looking at CCAP enrollment based on enrollment rather than attendance. I'm changing right now. You may vote. Any outliers? We're going to close the polling in 3, 2, 1. 65% strong support, 23% support. And then a 3 and a 10. Okay. Next recommendation. Oh, it does say studies. We're not exploring this one. Study study the success of CPD as a model to understanding how to expand preschool and apply that, what we learned from it, to how to expand understanding knowledge about the importance of birth to 3 and continuity of care. You may now vote. Yes. Okay. But I decided I'm always so that's why especially when the first one was twice, then I was like, oh, I don't get that. Any last voters? We'll close the polling in 3, 2, 1. The results for this one, 53% strong support, and then dribbled off from there. And the final group.
So our topic was to think through the local use of quality dollars, balancing equity, strategic use of quality resources, and local decision making. Problems identified included things like, while we've made significant progress, we do not have enough low-income children in CCAP and quality care. Consideration of the use of CCCAP funds for quality. Does this take away from counties with wait lists that need to serve more children? So that balancing of we spend money on quality for some purposes that is not perhaps done in isolation and has an impact on other communities. Another problem is some concern over whether or not county commissioners really understand CCAP and existing investments in quality and what the purpose of the program is, understanding the difference between quality of childhood education compared to a perception about babysitting. And do we have strategies we need to employ so people understand what we're already doing and why quality child care is important. So solutions. I'm going to break it maybe into 3. We have 2 here. So One, we said we do think there needs to be an intentional look at the allocation formula. Because what we're using as on the input sides really measure what it is that we're trying to capture with those inputs. And on the back end, does the distribution of finite resources reflect the need community by community? So continuing a close look at that allocation formula, it sounds like there are mechanisms available. We did want to acknowledge, though, that any adjustments to the allocation formula without additional resources is just a conversation about how you cut a pie that isn't big enough to achieve all we want to achieve as it is. And so we will continue to exacerbate the tension between access and quality until we think about ways we can get more resources to achieve both those goals. I don't know if you got it. No, I think it's just acknowledging that an intentional look at the allocation formula is important, and yet it needs to be done in a conversation about additional resources.
You're going to get all those.
Yes. Okay. 2. We wondered whether there would be an ability to be more flexible about addressing the allocation mid-year. So rather than at the outset sort of saying, here's the formula, here's how the money moves out, to be able to be more nimble through some sort of mechanism mid-year check-in that is not just county sort of trading resources, but having a statewide perspective on how resources are being utilized and are or are not going to, in some communities, dissipate very quickly, and in other communities, predict underspending. And so rather than sort of coming to the end of your closeout and trying to do balancing there, can there be a way that is a facilitated statewide view of the allocation and how it's playing out mid-year rather than the upfront and the closeout sort of mechanism?
So there certainly are states that do that. Not a completely new idea.
I think that it acknowledges that we can spend a lot of time getting that allocation formula exactly perfect, and it doesn't reflect the fact that there's so many unpredictable questions about how many families will walk through your door and say, I need childcare in this community versus this community. And if there's a way to be more nimble in reallocating funds throughout the year rather than just in closeout. Okay, that's 2. And then one last one. We had a great discussion. We think that there needs to be a step back amongst all stakeholders and consensus building around defining what the purpose of this program is. Until we come to some level of consensus as a state about why we're doing child care assistance, we will continue to have some voices that say, I need my allocation to spend on quality, and other voices that say, I don't care about quality, I just need certain things. And so we need, as a state, to continue to come together and talk about what is the purpose of the program, what are the measurements that would tell us whether or not we're achieving that purpose, so those metrics, those agreed upon measurable outcomes that could then inform future changes. So if we agree that school readiness should be a part of this program, what would be the outcomes that would be predictive of that? And therefore, what changes would we need to make if we were going to achieve that goal, such as more continuity for infants and toddlers? So I think that, we need to continue as a community, regardless of this meeting process, to develop some better consensus across the state around what it is we're supposed to be doing. What do we mean by serving infants in CCAP? Because we think there's just too much variability, and that's leading to this tension over access versus quality. How we use allocation.
Great. Any other questions, clarifications, or amendments?
We didn't surprise you in the statements, but we appreciate that last one that you said, but it's also a kind of consideration of what the federal rules are, correct?
The consensus piece?
Yeah, to have the conversations on that, and then, so you need to kind of look at what the federal guidelines are, and what we do as part of
friendly amendment
Friendly, okay.
within the federal guidelines that we have now. Great. Great point.
I must probably talk loud. Do we have anybody else online tonight?
And I guess I just want to maybe make a point of clarification that I don't know that there's any county that doesn't care about quality. I think that there are some counties that don't have that opportunity. Rural counties that I've heard that they don't have the luxury of having facilities that they can push, that they can get up to quality, that kind of thing. So I think when you talk about consensus, if we were to look at the Denver Metro, yes, you really have the opportunity to build some quality, to devote some resources to that. But as far as some of the more rural areas, I don't think they always have that luxury. I've heard different counties, they have one provider, that's it. And so I don't know that it's a matter of caring about quality and wanting to serve more kids instead. I don't know that they county see it as a payoff, so to speak. Anything else?
Okay, ready. So we're going to do 3 different slides. First one is, what is your level of support for an intentional look at the allocation formula? And read the reason and purpose behind that. In tandem with a conversation about increasing resources.
Can you repeat that again?
Okay. An intentional look at the allocation formula. Then we need all the other stuff I wasn't able to capture. There were purposes and reasons for that, while we're also taking into account conversations around increasing resources. Okay, and polling is open for this one. Great, any last voters? 30, fabulous, 31, oh, we got all 32 on this one. So 47% 25 support, 22 neutral, and 6 non-supportive. The next one, develop a mid-year check-in for the allocation formula and use of resources to learn and understand and identify any implications for the remainder of the year.
Assuming that's not already happening.
Assuming that is not already happening.
No.
And it is not in Colorado.
No, you mean that side of the trading that goes on.
Do we need to clarify this?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah,
what
not just within your county.
Yeah, what I think I heard you say is that there are states that literally course correct, based on a statewide look, not an individual county buying portions of the allocation from another county. So the one example of Charlotte Brantley were here, she would remind us all that Texas has been doing this for over 10 years. And again, they're not county administered, so it's different, but they collectively look to see at mid-year how much money they might have to invest in summer care for children, as an example. So it's potentially a more systematic way of looking at it. Is that what you meant? That's what
Okay. So, if you have voted for that, changed your vote at all, re-vote. This poll is still open. It will record the last thing that you push.
We're saying there would be cost corrections. We're just looking at the viability of doing this process.
So what I heard, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is to identify implications. There was nothing about the domain.
John, do we have a comment on the webinar?
So the comment from Jenny from the webinar is essentially says that I think the idea of checking in mid-year with who has needs makes sense if there's new funding, and redistributing a county's allocation mid-year to other counties makes it
extremely challenging to plan, to be prepared for when a mine closes or a jail closes.
Great. So additional context from community.
Any last changes to levels of support? Great, we'll close this one in 3, 2, 1. So split 50% strong support, but set as 20% support, and then a little bit more variation on the other. And anyone that was neutral or lower, is there anything that you want to share about what would increase that? You do not have to, just want to
I think part of this, I don't know who necessarily owns that whole discussion, but in the allocation committee that we do kind of look at that along the way to kind of help gauge in a way whether or not we're on the right track with the allocation methodology. And I think the other concern I have that would be part of this is we all know it's a slow shift to term, and if there are mid-course corrections in some of these changes, it's just kind of not sure what that would all look like to make a change mid-year when we could take a year to move up and down. So this one's a little bit of a concern, I think.
Thank you for sharing. Great. The next one is to engage in a statewide process for stakeholders to collectively agree on the purpose, outcomes, and metrics for CCAP. The polling is open. Great, we'll close the polling in 3, 2, 1. Strong support for that. 0.6. Rumor has it one team was so inspired by this, they've come up with another recommendation. Wow. I know. We did actually have this conversation at our table, and we decided to bring it forward as the second recommendation. Again, our topic was how do we not incentivize, what is it? Accept. Are you support? How do we facilitate? How we facilitate providers accepting CCAP. And we did have some conversation around providing additional financial incentives for high-quality providers to accept CCAP, in particular to offset the administrative burden. So this would be ideas like tax credits, exploring tax credits, exploring additional quality investments, anything that we think might help incentivize high-quality providers to accept CCAP. And also, this ties in a little bit with Boulder's campaign around Just One More. That's not necessarily a financial incentive, but what are those incentives that work to get those providers to accept subsidy? Great, any, great, there we go.
No, I was just going to say, I think to add one. You told us in the first group we could only do one.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I tried to say it was 1, 2, or 4, it was 1 or more.
So we only did one, so we would like that.
Okay, that's fine. Any clarifications or changes to this? Identify strategies for additional incentives for high-quality providers to accept CCAP.
Including financial effects.
Ready to vote? And your level of support for this one is?
All these caveats. All these caveats.
Polling is open. Your level of support for this? Great, we'll close the polling in 3, 2, 1. And to the table in the back, so sorry you were allowed more than one recommendation. That's all right. I just was trying to think about it. So an idea that we had was to have a county statewide admin meeting. Colorado Works and SNAP, both Antelope Financial, all three have a Colorado, have a statewide administrators supervisors meeting. And in order for communication to be better between counties especially, that might be something. And then with that meeting-wise, we also suggested that maybe early childhood councils have a quarterly meeting at the very least. Arapahoe County does, and I think Boulder doesn't do quite as often as quarterly, but they have one as well. So.
How often is that in the district? Is it different than what we do for the conference?
Yes, we have COPAM, which is the staff one meets every month, the last Friday of every month. Colorado Works and Adult Financial swap every other month. And it's an all-day meeting. So for all three groups, it's an all-day meeting.
So this proposal is one.
Yes, this would be regular, consistent, and Colorado Works, yes, Colorado Works, the EDD decided how often they wanted to do that, because it used to be Colorado Works every month, Adult Financial, every couple months, and then they just decided to go every other month, so. Great, any clarifiers or additions to that? You're so good. So we are voting on hosting, host is the right word, but I can't think of it, convene a county and county statewide administrator meeting sometime regular, consistent basis. Great, polling is open to share your level of support. Great, any last pollers? We will close in 3, 2, 1. Well done, Mary, do you want to post any closing comments? We'll be pulling all this information together. We'll go to Executive Director Vita, and then we'll be made available.
Just a thank you to all of you in the room and on the phone, and those who may not have been able to join us today for your participation. It's important and ongoing dialogue. I thought this was useful, and I'm impressed with the recommendation. So, really nice job.
Thank you all. Thank all, and please leave your clicker. It will not open your garage door. It will not order pizza on the way home. And nothing but just what you did. Thanks, everybody.
You've been before and everything, I thought, but I want to make sure. But I was just curious, actually. I'm glad you guys all do one. The one about, like, definitely get your sleep that you said. I guess it sounds like you would compete with this. I thought, but that's not.